documentary theater could be one way to call it, but I think it is very committed to do political theater. I mean,
that's how you will frame it. Because I'm just wondering if it is always your own interest and your approach in, like, your artistic approach in general before you come to Gorky, and then, or you change a little bit because you it's your own, like, approach, political particularly you're interested in. So I'm just wondering.
I think that the reason that I was brought here was because I was doing political theater in the past. I was very much combining doing political theater and devised work, which is very much connected to, I would say, very private processes. And I think that was kind of the approach that we're looking for here in Gorky.
Oh, I see. So do you consider your work, the work that we saw, like I saw Common Ground, I really like it.
Thank you.
Really, really, very much. And we watched Winter Geise last week. And then we're going to watch Situation. And some other works, we didn't have a chance to see it.
So,
will you consider them documentaries or something? That's how I understand, because in Taipei, that's how they promote it.
We always keep some kind of a gap between what is actually real and what is made up, or what is inspired by the real biography of the actors. But the attempt is not really to create a documentary, because documentary have to be very committed, first of all, to almost show objective reality, and we never try to do it. We always tell a story. So if you would also have the chance to see something from a little bit of a different angle, tomorrow would be Erotic Crisis, which is another show of mine here in the theater, but it's still using biographies or some real stories, but combining it with a story which is made up.
Oh, so you wouldn't consider that really close to documentary theater?
No.
But you
there is like a genre in cinema called mockumentary. So I would say it's more of a mockumentary than a documentary.
Oh, okay, very good. And then I saw, like, again, from the work that we saw, like, there are lots of autobiographical, personal materials in the piece that we saw so far. Are they always the important parts when you create, or it just happen to be in Gorky that you want to use the actor's background?
I always want to hear and to get to know the people that I work with. It's not always useful and not always connected to the themes that we're working. In those particular works that you mentioned, it's obviously was the reason of collecting the people. It was about a group of people dealing with their past or with their biographies. And in that sense, it was always had a real reference to their real stories.
So that means that two pieces, you have another, like, the people are more important, is the most important part in the creative process. That's why you pick most of the stories instead of, like, other. Okay. Is your idea, or it is coming from the theater, or just you talk with the artistic director?
It's always a combination. Some projects started as my idea that I offered to the theater. There were projects that started with an idea of a theater, but it was about something else, and then when we collected the people, the situation was supposed to be a different show, and then it became this show. And now I'm doing a project which was actually an initiation of the theater, that they came to me with an idea to do the Roma project. So it's always changing.
And for Common Ground and
Common,
like, because we saw it, so I think
Common Ground was something that I wanted to do for many years, and Winterreise was a new initiation of the theater to create a group of the Exile group, which is built of people who just recently arrived and then collecting this group. That was an initiation of the theater, and the theme we discovered while working with the group.
And in these two works, a journey is so important.
Yes.
Like in the dramaturgical structure, actually, it's almost. And the research is actually a journey as well. It's also the idea that you all discuss with the actors, and I'm just wondering how you why you're using this method as a research for the actors as well? Or to generate material?
Yeah, in Common Ground, we didn't know that the show would be about that. We just did it as a background research. But the journey was so interesting and so much happened during it, and it was such a catalysator for so many talks and situations that we thought, yeah, it would have made sense to talk about that. In Winterreise, because we already had the experience of Common Ground, we thought it would be interesting again to start with the research. We thought it would not be the theme of the show, but in a way I think you can also see it on stage. On the trip itself, very little happened. In Winterreise, it was more about the reflections and the memories that were provoked during the trip, but not really things that happened while we were there.
Yeah, because in Common Ground, like there are lots of moments that how they encounter the space, encounter the people they interview. I'm very impressed is the actor who did that one. It was, and then after he talks to the woman, if I didn't remember wrong, and it was. I would say they're really brave when.
But I want to say that there was also a very, very big difference when you understand what is the emotional position of the people from Common Ground than the people of Winterreise. Because the people from Common Ground are reflecting back on a war that ended more than around 20 years ago. And in what I understood working in Winterreise is that, of course, the war is still happening, the process is in the middle, people just arrived here, but their families are still there, things are still happening. It's a totally different situation. There is no possibility to reflect back on something that is still happening and so close and is changing, and in a way I would say it's almost too early to talk about what's happening in Syria now. You're not supposed to do shows about that yet, but of course that was the need, and that was the project, and if you bring this group of people together, you can't ignore that this is the most important thing in their life. But it's from a totally different point of view, the ability to tell a story or to look at it, than the ability to look at something that was over 20 years ago and now you live with the circumstances.
I want to talk about more political theater, like you mentioned. Sorry, I like going back and forth. And I read in an interview you're saying that you're interested, like definitely, like you want to talk about theater, like politics in theater. But also at the same time, you have lots of humor like elements in your piece, which I like it in Common Ground because it's such a nice balance. And also you talk about the blurring of reality and theater, and it fascinates you. But it's also about politics. So you find it and you also said that it's about mockudrama. So it is how why using theater to talk about politics in that way? Did I shape it in a clear way, or
I can try to answer.
Just your view,
First of all, I'm using theater because that's what I know to do, how to do. So this is my tool. So this is how I talk about it. And theater is a powerful tool because it can really talk about social and political phenomena through a very personal story or through an emotion, and make people approach thoughts and ideas not through the intellect and through their imprints about what they're supposed or not supposed to think. It's really to touch it through the human common ground, I would say, through the emotion, through the humor, through the understanding, in a way that that the fact that common ground could work in Taipei is not because people in Taipei are closer to the war in Yugoslavia, but of course because the human element and the story is the same when you move it from one place to another. And in that sense, it puts politics out of its narrow context and it's put it on the more human level.
Yeah, very. Yeah, thank you very much. It was really, really nice. You put it nicely. And then what else? Do you have any other things you want to
You
follow?
talk about a device theater.
Yeah.
So most of the time you don't. You are the author.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't. You seldom work with
Yeah.
another author.
Yeah.
So you devise the piece with the actors.
Yeah.
So for example, because I've only have a chance to see Winter Rise.
Yeah.
So Winter Rise is like that way. So in the beginning you have an idea to work on, and then you gather the actors, and then okay, let's go on a journey, and then we decide in the process what to show the audience. Right?
Yeah.
It is like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also because last week we talked with Irina, she also talked about the whole artistic strategy in Gorky,
Yeah.
having like actors from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
like nationality, of course, age and gender, and yeah. And I'm just wondering, sorry if this question is like very, whenever you direct a piece,
Yeah.
like because you're working at Gorky, you're not a freelance. You can like you're working
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
you have to go along with that strategy as well. When you work with a piece and with actors from different backgrounds and nationality, does it change the way how you work with that piece? Because like will you concede, for example, the nationality or gender will become like part of the.
I think
You want to reflect it through the piece, or you just play that kind of blind casting? Like I don't care about like they're white or black,
no.
but they can still do Hamlet or. Yeah,
No,
I'm
I
just
think
wondering.
because it's not that the role exists and we can we have to integrate a role with a person. It's all about what the people are bringing with them. So if I would ignore what they're bringing with them, I will have nothing to work with.
Yes.
So in a way, it is about inviting people to bring with all their complexity of their identity and all their complexity of their sexuality and all their complexity as people, and then not to put it into little boxes, but to try to present the complexity. So in that sense, yes, the background and the gender, it's not a burden, it's a quality, and we're trying to gain from it.
Then how does it inform, because there's so much from them,
Yeah.
obviously. Then how is your rehearsal process then normally? I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, so that you can include them or
Yeah.
like help them to put themselves
Yeah.
into the piece as well.
We're taking almost 4 weeks in the beginning, which we're dealing very little with theater. We're doing almost 4 weeks of something which is some kind of a group dynamic, also like a group therapy, doing a lot of talks, a lot of writing exercises, a lot of massage and Reiki treatments. And in the beginning it's really like, kind of like a healing group and like a social activity. And only at one part slowly the play starts to grow. But we're starting in a very unfunctional way.
How? You mean like with the therapy? Like for 4
Yeah,
weeks?
we're talking about ourselves, about, now we started a new project, and our first exercise was for each one to go on every month of the last year and to tell what was his private dramas happening in this month and give it a title. So we're starting from the very private angles that sometimes have nothing to do with the subject of the show, but it has to do a lot with us in order for each one to understand what is the subject that are most important for him also to talk on stage.
But you still need to cast them before you know them they're in the project. Then how are you going to make the choices?
Very intuitively. I have to trust that a lot. I have to see that there are people that I will be interested in, that I find them, that they're open, that they're committed, that they're willing to give from themselves and to talk, and that we have an interesting conversation, that they have interesting personalities.
Okay, nice.
So these 4 weeks of this
Yeah.
socializing, getting to know each other.
Yeah,
So another 4 weeks to shape the show.
yeah, something like this.
So you're normally like 2 months and then you
Yeah,
have a
I'm
break
saying I'm
between-
not working less than 8 weeks, sometimes even 10.
Yeah. And do you have any more questions? Last question. like it's good that you clarify that what you the documentary theater, because it's all very problematic how we label it, but very often we got the information out second hand or even third hand, because
I have to say I don't label what I do anyway. I mean, and I do all kind of things, and in those things there are different, I would say, even little genres of, you know. So that's why I said there is a show like Erotic Crisis or the Kohlhaas Prinzip, which is, and there's shows from which are, you know, situation, erotic, the Common Ground, and Winterreise, which are more, you know, this kind of conflict zone productions. But I'm working with what's interesting for me and what the group of the people that I cast is bringing with them.
And do you see your work actually responding to, because it's political theater, and responding to the society, or at least in Europe, in Berlin, you're responding to certain needs of the society, or do you think it is the work, that's why it is important for theater in that position?
I can't say if it's important or not important. I can say why it's interesting for me, and I think that for me the role of theater is to bring some of mirroring to a society, to project back what the stories of the cities, the conflicts, the the things that I'm busy with. Yes, and it feels like we're living in dramatic times, and there's a lot of things on the line, so it feels weird to do art just in the sake of art.